Again, welcome everyone, and thanks for taking the time to come and watch my presentation this afternoon about our trip to, I guess, a DXpedition to Labrador in CQ Zone 2. So it'll be a presentation. I'll talk a bit about who went and why we went and where we went. I'll give a couple of slides there about previous trips that we've done in the winter. And then I'll talk about a few things that we did before the CQ160 CW contest, and then at the end there'll be some slides about the contest itself. So to start off, where did we go? We went to Point Amour, which is in the southeast corner of Labrador, in the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. Point Amour actually has the tallest lighthouse in Atlantic Canada at about 125 feet tall. It was built in 1857 and automated in 1996. It is a provincial historic site run by the Labrador Straits Historical Development Corporation. And it did have, at one point in time, had a Marconi station. First call sign for the Marconi station was MPR, Mike Papa Romeo, from 1904 to 1949. And then it was switched to VCL, Victor Charlie Lima, in 1949. I guess that when Newfoundland and Labrador joined Confederation with Canada, when the switch was made from MPR to VCL. Why did we go? We went mainly for the CQ160 CW contest. If you're familiar, or if you're not familiar with the contest, the multipliers in this contest are US states, Canadian provinces, and DXAC countries. And for some reason, which I'm not about to complain about, this contest distinguishes between Newfoundland and Labrador as two separate multipliers. So there aren't very many hams in Labrador, even fewer who are on CW, and even fewer who are get on for for this contest. So it makes us a rare multiplier. I think this year in 2020, there was only one other station. I think he made about 10 QSOs or something from Labrador. Also, it has the distinction of being in CQ zone number 2, although CQ zones are not used as multipliers in this contest. Many low band contesters, 160 meter contesters or DXers get on specifically for this contest to try and fill out their Workdoll Zones Award. Who went? Well, your co-host here, Dave, V9CB, who's also licensed as VO2 AAA, myself there in the middle, and Frank Davis of VO1HP. Frank went along as well, so the three of us were there for the contest this year. A little bit of background, a little bit of history. Dave and I went to Point Amour in 2006. It was our first time there in the winter. We'd been there previously a couple of times in I think it was 1999, 2000, 2001, somewhere in that time frame. We were there for the CQ worldwide phone contest with a few other guys. So Dave and I went back in 2006 in the winter, in January, for the CQ160 contest. We lost power before the contest started. We had to run the first 7 hours of the contest on a generator. The reason for the power loss was that there was a down power line in the area due to the winds. Winds in the area were collected at 190 kilometers an hour, like for I think it was 2 days straight, or it felt like that. Anyway, that's it took out the power. Like I said, we had to run the first 7 hours on a generator. The generator that we were using could only handle, I guess, the amplifier or the heaters for the room that we're in. If you look in the bottom right-hand corner, you can see it's baseboard heating. So the generator couldn't handle both. So we decided to use the amplifier and not have heat there in the middle of January with a probably 100-kilometer-hour wind. So that's why you see us wrapped there with our winter jackets on and wrapped up in a sleeping bag. But through all that, we did end up #1 in the world in the multi-op category. Not too bad for our first time there. We had a couple of antennas. We had a sloping vertical with 3 or 4 raised radials and a dipole, I guess an inverted V, all both strung from the lighthouse. We used the vertical pretty much exclusively, and we also had a beverage, about a 300-foot to 100-meter beverage strung out as well. There is an article written in TCA, written by Dave, September and October 2006. So if you want to go back and look in your TCA, you can find out more of a write-up about that trip. And foolishly enough, we went back again in 2019, again with Dave and Frank. As you can see in the picture, we had a little bit more snow than what we anticipated. This was our mode of transportation for the last 2.5 to 3 kilometers from the road. The road was completely blocked with snow when we got there. We spent, I think, the first 3 days getting back and forth using this snowmobile and Comatec, and that's how we hauled all of the gear to the site. Again, it was the 3 of us, myself, Frank, and Dave. Dave and I drove. Dave was in Fredericton, and I'm just outside of Ottawa. We met in Baie-Comeau, Quebec. We had a pickup truck full of gear. We didn't know exactly what we were going to use, so we brought along extra radios, amplifier, all the antennas, all the computer equipment, all the coax, power supplies, radials, antennas, everything, and backups of a lot of it to just in case, because you don't find it too lot of, you can't go down to the nip down to the local hardware store and buy some RG213 if you need it. For me, from here, my place in Kemptville, just outside of Ottawa, it was about 32 hours of driving time. Like I said, when we got there, the road to the lighthouse was blocked with snow. It was windy, and it was windy every single day that we were there. It took us, I think, pretty much the full 3 days to put up, to get the antennas and everything strung up. And oddly enough, we lost power again at 4 o'clock in the morning on the Sunday morning. Again, from a down power line that we did see on the ground when we left the site in the morning in the dark. We did end up being #9 in the world last year in 2019 in the multi-op category. And again, Dave wrote an article in the May-June TCA of 2019. If you want to go back and read Dave's article for more information about that trip. For 2020, we went back again. My parents actually live in Labrador in Goose Bay, and that's where we kind of based everything out of Goose Bay for 2020. When we drove back in 2019, the drive through Goose Bay, so we stopped off at my parents' place. We left the antennas, the radials, the coax, all the rope, power supplies, the control cables, all that big heavy stuff that we didn't want to be lugging back and forth. We left in Goose Bay. So that allowed Dave and I to fly into Goose Bay with basically just our clothes and a radio each. Frank flew in from St. John's, flew directly to the nearest airport, which is about 45 minutes away in Blanc, Quebec. So Dave and I flew in on flew to Goose Bay on the Saturday, drove to Pointe-Amour on the Sunday before the contest. We picked up Frank on Monday. We were supposed to pick up Frank on Monday at the airport, but they had a major snowstorm in St. John's on a Monday, Tuesday. Actually, it started on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. State of emergency in St. John's, and Frank did not get out actually until Wednesday. But like I said, by leaving the bulk of the equipment in Goose Bay, we just had basically had to bring our clothes and radios. So what I did was I purchased a Pelican case, or a Pelican case knockoff, and inside that Pelican case, I was able to put in. You can see it in the picture on the right-hand side is a Samlex power supply. On the right-hand side is a small WIN key. The green thing says a little power divider, or not power divider, but just a power distribution. And the white box in the middle, around the left, is called an op swapper, which allowed us to have both. You could run 2 radios through the op swapper, and run 1 amp, one antenna, so both of us could be listening on the same, transmitting. One of us could transmit, and both of us listen on the same antenna at the same time. So on top of the, also in that Pelican case, I put my TS590 and all the cables that we needed. And there's the box, all neat and tidy. And that box actually fits within Transport Canada regulations to use as a carry-on. So I just stowed that in the overhead space on the plane. So once we got to Goose Bay on the Saturday, Dave and I still had an 8-hour drive to get to Pointe-à-Mour. So we had to, looking at satellite AMSAT satellite information, we had to actually drive through 7 different grid squares to get from Goose Bay to Pointe-à-Mour. So we decided to break up the drive a bit and have some fun along the way. So what did we do? We operated the ARRL VHF contest as VO2AC/R for rover and VO2 AAA for rover. And what we did was we worked each other at each grid boundary. So for example, we would stop at the FO2 and FO93 grid boundary, and 2 of us would be sitting in the pickup truck and work each other across the pickup truck from FO93. And then Dave would get out and he would walk across into FO92, and we would work each other from FO93 to FO92. And then we would switch positions, and Dave would get in the pickup truck and I would walk over to FO92, and we would work each other as from FO2 to FO92 to FO93. And then both of us would walk over to the on the FO92 side and work each other from there as well. And we did that on 3 bands, on 144, 220, and 432 megahertz. And in total, through the 7 different grid squares, we worked each other a total of 57 different times. And oddly enough, we had the exact same score. And the final results are out, and we were actually tied for 14th overall in the limited rover category. And surprisingly, or not surprisingly, we were first in Canada, and obviously first in Labrador as well in our category. I don't think they get too many entries in that contest from Labrador, because if you don't have a buddy to work, you're not working anything on any type of skip up there. There's nobody close enough. Like I said, we also stopped when opportunity arose to work some of the FM satellites from some very rare grids. So there's a picture of me standing outside the truck at about -20, working. I can't forget which satellite, and I forget which grid this is from. But we did that a bunch of times along the drive. Just whenever we found out the timing was right for an FM satellite pass, we would look for a spot on the side of the road, pull over, work the spot or work the pass to whatever the 10-12 minutes whether the pass was going to be, and that's what we did. And we worked about 80 QSOs from 6 of the 7 grids. One of the grids, I think it's GO12. You're just barely in that grid for about maybe 15 or 20 minutes, half an hour tops, and it just didn't work out with the timing. for the satellite passes for us to work anybody on the way to or on the way from Point More. But other than that, we said we worked in 6 of the 7 grids. So for the trip itself in 2020, for the 3 times that I've been there and Dave's been there, this was the best weather we'd ever seen. It was a lot warmer, probably about -5 or so, I think, that got up to during the day. There was a lot less snow. The road didn't need to be plowed. I forgot to mention when we were there last year in 2019, on the Thursday, we actually stopped, or actually found somebody to plow the road for us. Somebody came up with a big front end loader and got rid of all the drifts of snow and open up the road for us so we could actually drive right to the site, which turned out to be really really helpful. And thankfully a lot less wind. So Dave and I, like I said, we got there on the Sunday evening. Monday we started putting up all the antennas. Frank was, like I said, was supposed to be there on the Wednesday, or sorry, on the Monday, but he didn't, with the snowstorm in St. John's, he didn't get there until Wednesday. But Dave and I put up all the antennas and some of the station in about 8 hours. And with all the wind in 2019 and having to lug everything back and forth with the snowmobile and the Comatic, it took us the better part of 3 days to get everything put together. Now the weather was a big part of it, but also familiarity of where the antenna went, where we were laying out all the radials, where to run the coax, where we were setting up. So I guess familiarity with the station, experience what goes where, that made a big difference in the time that it took for us to set up the station. Another improvement that we made was when we were there in 2019. We made I built up some 5-gallon buckets from Canadian Tire with I guess the matching network for the antenna inside, and we had to connect all the radios to that bucket, and I'll show you that, a picture of that in a second. And that was all done with ring terminals. So trying to screw on probably about what was that? Probably about 30, probably about 60 radials onto using ring terminals and a screw and a bolt and a nut. When it's about probably -15 or -20, wasn't pleasant. So we changed from ring terminals to blade terminals. So here's a photo of what we did. You can see there trying to put on all those radials onto that the stainless steel bolt there. Like I said, when it's about -15, -20, when you get your bare hands out trying to put that nut on, wasn't pleasant. So what we did was this year we cut. We had all the connections made to that ground terminal. We had that previously done, and we just had small, 8-inch, 12-inch flying leads come out of off the ends of that bolt, and we had these blade connectors on the end of that little short flying lead, and also on the end of the radials. So it was just a matter of pushing those blade terminals together, which is a lot easier to do, like I said, than trying to put that bolt on that screw and all those ring terminals. So you can see there in the picture, you see the short leads connecting all the radials, and then the blade terminals connecting the radials to the ground on the at the base of the bucket for the match on the antenna. For our antennas this year, were the same as what we had in 2019. We had an inverted L with a parasitic element. It was a sloping T, much similar to what, but not as effective, but much similar to what a lot of the big stations like VE3EJ, K3LR, what they use on 160. They have a central central element with sloping T's in 4 directions that you can switch those as a reflector or a director, depending which direction you want to fire. We just had a single T, which we could switch between northeast towards Europe as a director, or we could switch it, just make it, I guess, invisible electrically so that it's omni, or we could switch it to the southwest as a reflector. For the receive antenna, we had a 200-foot unterminated beverage on the ground that Frank set up for us, and Frank was responsible for, which he did a great job with. We aimed it at Japan before the contest, and then just swung it 90 degrees and aimed it at Europe during the contest. Just a few pictures of the site itself. Unfortunately, when these pictures were taken, it was a gray, overcast afternoon, so you can't really see the antennas, all the wires and the ropes. If this had been taken during like in a clear blue sky, you'd probably see them a lot easier. But needless to say, there's an inverted L going up to the top of the lighthouse there, with 30 radials underneath it, and there's also a sloping T, a parasitic with 30 radials underneath it as well. In that picture, that's another angle of the antennas. And just so that you know, we did not operate from the lighthouse itself, but from this small building in the sort of in the background there. The Heritage Center, that's where we actually operated from. So we weren't in the lighthouse itself. And finally, here's another picture showing the, I guess you can't see them, but the antennas are there. Just another view of the lighthouse. And here is the receive antenna, the bog, the beverage on the ground that we were using, all coiled up and ready to be deployed. And here's Frank Wednesday evening after he got in, setting up the bog in the dark, and just by luck, in the position that we decided to use as the starting point, as the feed point for the bog, we found this old pipe casing, I guess, used for a well, and so we decided to use that as a ground. So I took my pocket knife out, scraped off some of the rust, and used that well casing as a ground. And anyway, it must have worked really well, because or might have been very effective, because the bog worked extremely well, really well. So before the contest, we'd concentrated on working JAs and Japan and Asia on 160 meters and 80 meters. That was one of the things we were trying to do, was help out our JA friends with their Worked-All Zones Award. We knew that Jeff VY2ZM and his wife Miriam VY2NA had been to Sept-Îles, Quebec in VE2 at the club station there back in November and December, I believe it was, and they were successful in working some Japanese from Zone 2. So we decided that would be our concentration before the contest. And we did manage to work 11 JAs on 160 meter FT8. We worked 23 on 80 meter FT8. And for many of them, if helped complete their 160 meter Worked-All Zones Award, or their 5-band Worked-All Zones Award. I think there was at least one station that we worked that worked us on 80 meters and 160 meters, and it was his last zone that he needed on both bands for Worked-All Zones. Dave did actually work somebody, VO2 AAA, worked the JA on 80 meter CW. I can't remember the last time that was done, but it's been a long time. I don't have the exact dates, but I believe the last time it was done, QSO was made on CW from Zone 2 to to Japan. I think, I'm not 100% sure, it was sometime 30 years ago-ish, somewhere in that time frame. But anyway, the Japanese were happy enough to work us on FT8, and we were happy to work those as well. At one point in time, we could actually see and hear the FT8 tones from JA8WKE. So to me, that means that it would have been possible to work him on CW, and we desperately tried to get in contact with him. I believe his signal was audible and visible for at least 5 minutes. We were on the ON4KST chat at the same time, and I was looking him up on QRZ.com, but there was no email address for JA8WKE. I was desperately trying to get some of the Japanese stations that were on the ON4KST chat at the same time to contact him, but we weren't successful. So we missed that opportunity to work Japan on CW from Zone 2. Like I said, it's been a long time since anybody has done it, but like I said, there was only probably about a 5-minute window where when we heard and saw the tones from JA8WKE's FT8 signal. Plus, we also worked like New Zealand and Australia and all these other countries. Some nice DX stations there on 160 meters on FT8. We worked some on CW as well, but these are some of the highlight some of the stations that we worked on FT8. Dave and I worked Jeff VY2ZM, who was at JT5DX for the contest. We worked Jeff as JT5DX on 160 meter CW, both as VO2AC and VO2 AAA. And on 80 meters, we worked a couple of Chinese stations, plus Australia and VK6, which is probably the farthest you can get from that point in Zone 2 without actually being at the Antipodes, which is in the middle of the South Pacific. But that's probably the farthest away landmass with any sort of population was VK6. So we did work at VK6 on 80 meter FT8, plus some Eastern European or Eastern, Far Eastern Russian stations as well. So that was a treat. We were also interviewed by CBC Labrador Morning at the local radio station in Goose Bay about our adventures and while we were there, and gave some promotion to Prairie Moore and some promotion to amateur radio in general, and promotion about the CQ160 contest. And with all the JA activity that we were drumming up, and we were actually contacted by the DX editor of JACQ magazine, and he wrote up a nice article about in JACQ magazine, and he's kind enough to send us a copy of the article. Unfortunately, I can't read Japanese, but I assume it was a nice article he wrote about us. One interesting thing we found out was with the beverage on the ground. Like I said, Frank was supposed to get there on Monday, but he didn't arrive until Wednesday. So Dave and I, the first 3 days, we were getting up and going out to the site for, we were staying in a small motel about 10 or 15 minute drive from the lighthouse. So we would get up and we would go to the lighthouse and go to the site for JA sunrise, and we'd go back and sleep, and then we'd get up for JA sunset, and we'd go back and sleep. And so we were running trying to work the JAs on the transmit antenna, which we did work a fair number of guys with. We didn't actually get the bog going until Frank arrived on Wednesday evening. But when Frank got there, we had the bog set out. We had a second laptop running, WSJTX for FT8, and we were listening on a SDR Play RSP2 on the second laptop. So I was running my laptop on the transmit antenna. Frank was listening on FT8 on the bog, using the SDR, and we're sitting next to each other and looking at each other's screens, and there were a number of stations, a number of JA stations that we were only copying on the beverage on the ground, on the bog. And there were some decodes where I was decoding nothing on the transmit antenna, and Frank was decoding, 3, 4 JA stations on the bog. So that just blew my mind. So that had me, I guess the three of us now convinced of the importance of diversity reception. I know that we did work at least probably 3 or 4 stations that way where I could not copy them on the transmit antenna, but did transmitting on the transmit antenna and able to get a signal over to them, and Frank would copy them on the bog, and he would tell me, okay, here's the call sign of the JA station, call this guy, and I would just enter that information into FT8 and to WSJTX. And so I was working guys that I could not actually copy on the transmit antenna, but working them, seeing and decoding them on the receive antenna on the bog with Frank sitting next to me. That was so that was pretty neat. So for the contest itself, which was the main reason we did go there, like I said, the same antenna, a transmit antenna, was the inverted L, 100-foot vertical, switchable northeast southwest with parasitic. 200-foot unterminated bog aimed at Europe. We had a pair of TS590s and a pair of RSP2s, SDR radios, receivers. One was used for local for a CW skimmer, and the other one was as a third receiver. So we actually had three radios going at the same time. Logging, we used N1MM plus, and we had a TL922 that we brought with us. We actually shipped it beforehand, and Frank brought along an ACOM 1010 as a backup. Like I said, we didn't want to get there and have something happen with one of the amps, so we brought along 2 this year. So what we did, like I said, you use that op swapper. That allowed us to have both stations sharing the same transmit antenna. So one of us would, we could set it up so that one of us could transmit running a pileup, and the other station could be searching up and down the band for multipliers, or using CW skimmer to pick off spots, or we're connected to the DX cluster at the same time, and so we could pick off spots on the band map as well. And then we would just signal to the other. Say if Dave was running, Frank could signal Dave and say, "Hey, I've got a nice multiplier here. He's nice and strong. Just pause for like 10 seconds. Give me a chance to work the multiplier." So the Dave at the run station would stop. Frank would work the multiplier, and then Dave would continue on back to his running. With maybe a 5 or 10 second pause at most. And that worked out really well. Or the other option we could do was have 2 stations listening to the same pileup, and whichever guy I guess hit the enter key first, that was who would win and work the guy. But anyways, it was neat. The op swapper is a pretty neat piece of gear. As for conditions, they were a lot better in 2020 than they were in 2019. QSO rate was much higher, and this year we felt loud in Europe. And I guess loud in Europe is all relative, but we felt really loud. Like it was probably the best conditions we've had in the 5 or 6 times that I've been to Point Amour, especially on best 160 conditions for sure. This is just a picture of a setup. We have my TS590 there on the left, and Dave's TS590 on the right, with the TL922 there in the background. Like I said, conditions were a lot better this year than last year. We were within 10,000 points of last year's score, 2019 score, within the first 15 hours. This gives you an idea how much better conditions were this year than last year. Here's a picture of Frank at the CW skimmer and the SDR play spot for the third receiver. So Frank did a lot of the work getting all that set up and maintaining it for us. We only missed Wyoming for worked all states. We only missed 4 or 5, five multipliers that we know of listed there. Those were the only stations that we knew, that the multipliers that we knew that we missed. Anything else that we worked. We never heard anything from Northern Canada. No VY1s, no VE8s, no VY0s, and surprisingly, nobody from PEI. Jeff VY2ZM is was in Mongolia at JT5DX, and we tried to conjure up a couple guys before the contest to try and get on 160 and work us, but nobody was able to get on, so we missed the easy, what would have been easy PEI multiplier as well. We did hear a couple of JAs on 160 CW during the contest. We were actually called by a JH3. Dave was at the station at the time, and we're running the pileup at the time, but just could not pull him out of the pileup. We were also called by, we also called and heard JA7NI, but we could not get through to him. He got part of the call, but he just could not get the full call. So that would have been pretty neat to actually work GA in the contest on CW, but also to try and or to complete a zone 2 to a JA QSO on CW for the first time in what we think is probably 30 plus years.
Chris, I have one question from the chat.
Yep.
Doug Schultz, VE1IOU, asked if we used the bog on both 80 and 160, and if so, did it work well on both bands?
Yeah, we use it on both 80 and 160. More on 160 than 80, and it did work really well on both bands. Like I said, Point of Moore is a fantastic site. It sits on the lighthouse sits on a 50-foot bluff overlooking the Atlantic. There's a view to the northeast towards Europe. Because we are probably one of the first stations in North America to hear the Europeans, we could actually hear Europe as early as 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Can you imagine? 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we're hearing Europeans on 160 meters. We can't work them because it's still an all daylight path at that point in time. But at 3:30 in the afternoon, we can work Europeans. Not very many, and only the loud ones and the ones with good receive antennas. But by about 5:30 in the afternoon, 2100 Zulu, we are able to run Europeans. Just to give you an example, I'm going to have to switch out of here for a second and just go over to another program. I wasn't able to embed this video into the presentation, but I'll just switch out of this. I'll play you a short video, about 25-30 seconds, of a European that we heard. Somebody had just spotted the station. Somebody on the east coast of Canada just spotted the station and gave him a 519. And this is what I'll just show you. What we how we heard him on 160 meters at I forget what time it was in the afternoon, at 4 o'clock, 4:15 in the afternoon. Here's what we were hearing on 160 meters. That give you an idea. You can see that, like I said, someone in the East Coast reported him as 519, and you can see clearly on the on the video that he was 599 dead on the meter. You know, just shows you how great of a place this is for contesting.
Chris, I have another question from you from online here.
Correct.
Okay, Don V9XX up in the Masters area asks, what is your 160 WAZ total from Point of More from all the visits?
Ooh, that I don't know off the top of my head. I'm guessing it's probably in the mid 20s. I would think somewhere around there.
It's going to be about right, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head.
All right, thank you.
All right, I just have to get back to the presentation here. And for some reason, I can't get the presentation in the. There we go. So I've got about 5 minutes left, so I'll power through the last 2 or 3 slides here. So the final results came out about a month ago from the 2020 CQ160 contest, CW contest. Our final score, 1,621 Qs by 58 states and provinces and 85 DXCC. Just as a note, I believe the most ever states and provinces by I think any station in Canada in this contest is 59. Like I said, we just missed PEI this year, plus the three Northern Canada multipliers, and I think the most countries worked is 90 by VY2ZM. So we're just five shy of that. Anyway, 1.7 million points was our final score. We only lost 27 QSOs, which is amazing. Just goes to show you how dedicated Frank and Dave, especially, were to making sure we copied call signs and copied reports correctly, or copied the reports correctly. We lost 0 states and provinces and 0 DXCCs from our totals, which was again a testament to the guys operating. We only had a 1.8% score reduction from our claimed or our submitted score. We ended up number 15 multi-op in the world, which was down from our 2006 when we were number 1, which is down from 2019 when we were number 9, down to number 15 in the multi-op category this year. But it just goes to show the how popular this contest is becoming with in the multi-op category. Most of the stations that we were beat were by Europeans or in multiplier advantaged areas like off the east coast of Africa or north coast of Africa, or maybe in Cyprus, where they're in where everything is a 10-pointer for them and a lot more multiplier rich. And this is actually the 3rd highest multi-op score from North America in this contest, only bested by number 1 and 2 scores from VY2ZM. That's a few statistics about the QSO breakdown, just broken down by Canadian stations, US stations, Europeans, Asia, South America, Africa, and Oceania stations. And if you add up all the outside of North America stations and add up all the stations from inside North America, so that's US and Canadian stations, we're just over half. I think it's whatever the numbers are. We worked about 15 or 20 more stations outside of North America than we worked inside of North America. So that's it for the CQ160 and our DXpedition trip to Labrador part of the presentation. I have just one more slide to talk about. I'm not sure if you remember, but at the beginning of the presentation, I mentioned that there was a Marconi station at Point of More at one point in time. The first call sign was Mike Papa Romeo. So I know the people that run the Point of More historical group are really interested in having amateur radios operate from Point of More. So we've actually picked up a club call sign, VO2 Mike Papa Romeo, which is taken out in my name. And we bought a length of coax, and we've got an Alpha Delta DXE fan dipole that's there. So if anybody's ever in the area, there is an antenna. And if you want to use the VO2 NPR call sign, you're more than welcome to. Just send me the logs after for keeping statistics and for keeping logbook of the world updated. All you have to do is bring a rig and a power supply, and the people who are running the Point of More Historical Society would be more than happy to help you out, and they'll more than likely even help you install the antenna and take it down when you're done as well. Anyway, that's it for my presentation. If anybody has any questions.
Actually, Chris, I do have one offer from Frank, VO1HP, our partner in this little enterprise. Frank offers that if anybody is interested in further details on his beverage on the ground, on how it's configured at Point of More, please go to Frank's QRZ page. So look up Victor Oscar 1 Hotel Papa on QRZ.com, and you can find out, that will lead you to information about the bog that we used at Point of More.
Okay, we've got about, let's see, about 5 minutes left before we head back to the main presentation site. But if you have any questions, feel free to shoot them on the chat, or if you think of something later, feel free to hit me up on my email on qrz.com, v3fu@rac.ca.
Another question from the chat. Don V9XX asks, do we have future plans for more operations there after the world returns to normal?
Yes, that's the plan. We're hoping the world is going to return to normal by January, so that I can get back up there with Dave and possibly Frank. I can't. Well, I'm outside the Atlantic bubble, so I can't get there. But we're hoping that things will lighten up and allow us to go back in January. If not, hopefully the year after that. Like I said, if you have any more questions later on, just feel free to hit me up. Fire me an email, v3fu@rac.ca, or to Dave or to Frank. We all three of us will be more than and delighted to answer any questions. Actually, Dave was just up there in August for the International Lighthouse and Lightship Weekend, and operated as VO2 NPR using that Alpha Delta fan dipole, and got on the AMSAT FM. Not only the FM satellites, but the linear satellites as well.
Actually, I have another question here. Igor V3ZF asks, is VO2 NPR, is it located on the Lighthouse site as well? Yes, I can answer that, Igor. VO2 NPR is on the site. That's the call sign is registered to the site. And anybody visiting the site, any radio amateur visiting the site, is welcome to use the call sign and use the antennas that are stored there.
Yeah, but it's not, you can't operate from in the lighthouse itself. The base of the lighthouse and the building attached to it is actually part of a museum. So they're kind of, no, not kind of, but they are very restrictive of what happens inside there. But you will most likely be set up in the Heritage Building, which is the same building that we operated from. Just a rig and a power supply, and away you go.
Any further questions? Let's see here. I think there might be one more. Oops. Oh, I have a number of commentary. People thanking you for the virtual trip to Point of More from Steph Bauer, and other very positive comments. So,
okay.
Good job, Chris. Well done.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for attending. Certainly appreciate you taking your time out of your afternoon and come and listen to my presentation. And I guess I'll see you back in the main chat room. And thanks for being a member of RAC.
All right. Thank you, everyone. And all right, have a good afternoon and look forward to the next session. All right. And I think we end it now.